Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank, coming to you virtually from Seattle and the PNW, as we affectionately call the Pacific Northwest. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this podcast right here is the one for you. This is where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host this week is Craig Swanson. Our guest today, we're very excited to have Rob Hampton from Coda Music Technologies. Rob has spent the majority of his career in the music industry. His roles have included everything from music retail sales to performing at countless terrible bar shows, his words, not mine, to directing music at churches. After starting his first e-commerce business in the sports and outdoors niche, and quickly flipping it, he combined his love for business and e-commerce with his love for music, and he launched Coda Music Technology. Now Rob owns multiple brands while also working with other companies to help them succeed online. Welcome, Rob. We can't wait to get started talking with you. Listen, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, YouTube. We are ubiquitous. We come to you from about a dozen cities and growing. That includes the mothership in Atlanta, Boca Raton, Charleston, Boston, Dallas, Knoxville, and I hear New York City's coming. Now listen, before we bring on Rob, hello there, Craig. How are you?
I am doing great. Hello, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, the fact that we have Rob, and thank you for inviting him to come talk. We have Rob coming, made me go back in time to the summer, not the summer of '69, Bryan Adams, but the summer of '83, when it was June and I was newly graduated from high school, which everybody can now do the math and have an idea of how old I am. And my buddies and I, Lee and Kurt, we decided to take a road trip, and we drove from Oak Harbor all the way down to Malibu. Now we stopped on the way down and back at several places, including the Bay Area and Disneyland and the whole thing. But we had a great time. And the funny thing is that in that, in 1983, there was no digital stuff. We were high tech with a cassette. And somehow one of us didn't get the memo because only one cassette came along, and it was mine. And we wore that baby out. In fact, I own it again today just on my digital music. It's a San Francisco area based band. Craig, do you want to take a guess at what band and maybe even what album I listened to down and back, all the way down I-5 and back?
You're going to out me. It's just, so the only reason you come up with San Francisco, I'm thinking of Peter Frampton just from his live show, but that's about it.
No, this is a true San Francisco Bay Area. It's Huey Lewis in the News. And it was,
I did not know there's San Francisco.
Sports. It was the album Sports with, I Want a New Drug and Heart of Rock and Roll and so many others. In fact, as soon as that comes on, I think about my trip. I got to ask you, okay, let's do this, the old proverbial question. You got to take a road trip. You only get one album. Doesn't have to be a cassette anymore. You can do it digitally, but what album who are you going to take?
Well, I knew you were going to ask this, so I actually wrote down the album I would normally take, but then your road trip story got me thinking. So for me, it's a road trip I took up in Canada with some new friends in high school, and I was exposed to Born in McLeod, which is a Scottish cowboy kind of rockabilly band. I don't know if that's really the way I describe it.
What's the name of the group?
Born in McLeod. And
McLeod, okay.
It is great. I just love it. And
Scottish rockabilly, is that what you just said?
That's what I'm gonna call it, to like kind of try to get it. It's really great. And then we played that, and on the B-side it was the Pogues, I think. And this is what we listened to just nonstop for 8 hours of driving up through Canada.
Okay, Rob, I'm gonna bring you in. Okay, and I had no idea where Craig was gonna go. Given the choice between Born in McLeod and Huey Lewis, A, who would you choose? And then B, who would you really choose? What would your album be?
Well, I am not familiar with Born in the Cloud, so I definitely have to say Huey Lewis, but I do love rockabilly, so I'd definitely be keen to check it out. Probably my favorite artist of all time is a little less known, a singer-songwriter named Dustin Kensrue. He's out of the Southern California area and actually plays in a kind of harder rock band called Thrice, but then he has his own solo albums under his name, and his album Carry the Fire is my all-time favorite.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Hey, listen, thank you for being here. Now that we've got all the silliness about all of who would you take, which I think is kind of a fun thing. Tell us a little bit about. I mean, you just said. I mean, I in your bio, you have a whole bunch of music background. Tell us how you started Coda Music Technologies, how that came about.
Sure. Well, my background has my careers have always been in music in one way or another. I went to school for audio production, played in a bunch of terrible bands all through high school, college, and post-college. And I like to say now, like, I ended up in business as a failed rock star. So rock stardom did not work out, but I've thoroughly enjoyed being able to apply what I've learned playing music and producing music with my company. So actually how it started was I was looking to scratch my own itch. I was directing music at a church, and we would go through new songs over and over and over. So I had so much paper of all these different songs. It was always getting lost and whatnot. So naturally I was like, oh, well, I'll just use an iPad. But then that presents the new problem is like, well, how do I turn the page? So I actually developed a Bluetooth equipped foot controller for controlling an iPad to turn pages on sheet music and chord charts while I was playing guitar. So that kind of launched Coda. I did a Kickstarter for it, which was successful. And the rest, as they say, is kind of history.
Oh, that's great. Well, I actually didn't know the Kickstarter story. When did you launch the Kickstarter? And like, tell us a little bit about that. That is
Sure.
a really great startup story.
Yeah. So I might get the dates backwards. I want to say it's 2016. It could have been 2017. But yeah, I had the idea, and actually I went to a local meetup, and I met a guy who actually became a good friend, a guy named James, who he was a fantastic copywriter, and he really started teaching me digital marketing and copywriting, and gave me a much better understanding of like how you sell based not on features but on benefits. And so then he really held my hand through the process of launching the Kickstarter. We put together all these email sequences to really educate people on like how this is going to benefit their life. And yeah, the Kicks, it was all super low budget. I spent like $300 on getting a budget video produced, had all my buddies volunteer to come and perform in it, and did the Kickstarter and launched to our email list, and it went well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, I've been playing around even as we're talking now, looking at your website, and it's all music related. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things you're putting together for podcasters, which got me really interested. Let me ask you this: if somebody's just listening to us or watching us now, if you were to give them, that mythical elevator pitch in under 10 words, what is your value proposition? What is it that you do for musicians to help improve them?
Yeah, so we provide the tools and resources for performing musicians and content creators to improve their craft. So that's the right hardware for the right job for the right creator.
And how, the music industry obviously is huge. How are you getting the word out about you?
Well, our biggest thing is I'd say a combination of influencers reaching out to people on YouTube. YouTubers love to talk about gear. Musicians love to talk about gear. So that's one of the biggest aspects. We also, Amazon is one of our biggest platforms. And so we do a lot of advertising on Amazon. We do terrible at social media because I just do not enjoy social media. That's kind of one of our biggest flaws at the moment, probably. But yeah, really, it's just like word of mouth, YouTube, people that love talking about gear and have found how our tools solve their problems.
That's really great. What do you have any good stories about an outreach to to an influencer, or like how do you reach out? How do you get someone to talk about what you're doing, or to sample your gear?
Yeah, so at this point, we've been working for the last year on really getting more of a honed in process. And a member of my team, Rodrigo, will basically just watch. He gets paid to watch hours of YouTube, which he absolutely loves, of course. And he'll just watch YouTube and try and find people that like really fit us and that we're going to fit well. We don't want to just like randomly reach out to people and say, hey, promote our product. We want somebody that like we just know it's going to connect right with them, with their audience, etc. And so, yeah, Rodrigo will watch hours and hours of YouTube, find great creators, reach out to them, start a relationship. And from there, sometimes it involves some sort of affiliate deal. Sometimes it's a giveaway. Yeah, it's kind of becomes organic after that initial outreach of just saying, hey, like we saw your content. It's really great. Here's who we are. Could we connect?
Yeah, I kind of want to go back a little bit into your entrepreneurial journey. As I was reading your bio, I mean, you talked about being in a sports niche. I'm interested what that was, but your love of music, and then your love of e-commerce, which you don't hear that very often. That probably warms Craig's heart. But this whole almost this perfect storm of business, of music, and all of that. Was there this light bulb moment, or was it a little less linear as to kind of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I'll say it was a little bit of both. So I have had the entrepreneurial bug, although I probably didn't even know that entrepreneur was a word more than 6 years ago, or at least couldn't define it well for you. But I have had business ideas since I was a kid. I remember specifically coming up with an idea for a music venue when I was 13, and my dad telling me, okay, well, I'll help you with it, but you got to write a business plan. And actually, really funny, a couple of years ago, my parents were going through the house cleaning up, and my mom found my old business plan and she gave it to me. I was just laughing, like reading through. It was actually half decent for a 13-year-old kid. I was kind of impressed with myself looking back 20 plus years. But yeah, so I've always had the bug. I've just never honestly really stepped out strong enough or really taken that leap until around 2015, 2016. What ended up happening was my dad was kind of doing a side hustle job. He's always been in business as well, but he'd taken just a part-time job at Cabela's, helping out on the weekends, more for fun than anything. And then he couldn't help himself. He saw an opportunity. They had a lot of discount equipment that they were trying to get rid of. And so he decided to see if he could flip it on eBay. Then the natural progression from that was, well, it's going really well on eBay, and I'm just buying it from Cabela's and then reselling it. What would happen if I reached out to these brands and got wholesale relationships? And so I can say this now that he's not running it anymore and he won't get in trouble. There's what's called MAP pricing, which is minimum advertised price, which is very important for the integrity of a brand to not erode that. But a lot of resellers do violate MAP pricing, and they'll advertise a product for much lower than what it should be. And when that happens, it makes it hard for everybody else to sell unless they also lower their price. So my dad had some products, had some overstock that he was not able to sell, but he didn't want to violate his MAP pricing. So he called me up and was like, hey, I'm doing this thing on eBay. Do you want to try it on Amazon? I'll sell it to you, and then I won't be violating MAP. You don't have a MAP agreement, and you probably make a couple $1,000. Like, oh, cool. Yeah, that'd be great. And I thought, maybe a few months I would sell through all of the inventory I'd gotten from him. And then it ended up being just a couple of weeks. So I was so shocked and excited by how well it went. I ended up starting a very similar business with outdoor camping, hunting, shooting sports brands, primarily on Amazon. And yeah, so that was,
and
what got me
into that niche.
Exactly.
And the rest is history. Well, one thing that we are not able to violate is not telling everybody about our great sponsors. So we're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Rob Hampton, for a Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to talk to Rob about juggling hats. He'll find out and you'll find out what I mean when we come back with more from the Shrimp Tank.
EO Accelerator is a coaching program for Seattle area business owners who want to grow their existing small businesses beyond 1 million in annual revenue. As a small business owner, you face new challenges every day, whether it's deciding how you're to fill rush orders or puzzling about where to find new customers. Do you find yourself wishing you had an instruction manual for your business? At EO Accelerator, our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the tools, accountability, and community to aggressively grow and master their business. This is more than a theory. This is entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs. With top Seattle business leaders who've been where you are, volunteering as coaches and mentors in the Accelerator program. Because the hustle will only get you so far, the next level of success is a team sport. Want to hit 1 million in revenue? Join the club. Contact us at eoseattle.org/accelerator.
All right, and welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Craig Swanson, and our guest today is Rob Hampton. For our next segment, we have Hot or Not.
And Rob, I guess you've probably figured out, I think you've listened to a couple of our podcasts. This is where Craig and I pepper you with questions about business, about life, about music. And we're going to find out if you think it's hot or not, and then why or why not. I mentioned juggling hats. You've got a ton of stuff going on in the music business and you're running multiple companies. So I think I know the answer, but let's find out. Hot or not, managing multiple companies at one time?
Hot.
Okay, so I've thought that might be tell us how you're doing it, because I know a lot of folks who have enough trouble doing one at a time. How are you doing it?
Yeah, well, whether or not it's wise, I won't comment on. But yeah, I am running both Coda Music Technologies as well as a company called CDA Tactical, where we help brands in the outdoor shooting sports and hunting niche with their online e-commerce and digital marketing strategies. So it is a bit all over the place, but borrowing from my past history as a reseller in that niche. And then I also actually acquired another brand at the beginning of 2020 in the music industry. So yeah, keeping plenty busy. And really, to me, it comes down to kind of the right tools and the right people. So I'm super into getting the right tools and automation, project management software. And then I have a fantastic team that is supporting me. Definitely could not be doing it if I was the only one.
All right, well, how about we talk a little about the remote team? So hot or not, hiring remotely?
Hot.
Well, tell us more.
Yeah, so I love it. So I have been I have run my business completely remotely since before the pandemic. That was kind of always my desire with the way that I designed the business, was so that I could be location independent and work from anywhere. And so with that, in mind, if I wanted to work from anywhere, then I definitely wasn't going to be able to hire local and have an office that I wasn't going to show up to. So yeah, I hire completely remotely, mostly internationally. And at the moment, over the past year or so, it's really evolved that the majority of my team is in South America, and it goes great. Like, we meet regularly on Zoom, we use Slack, we have daily check-ins. We have weekly and monthly tactical meetings. And honestly, for us, it is just as productive as being in an office.
So you may have heard at the opening, Rob, I talked about this is where book smarts and street smarts collide. Now, we know they're both important, but if you had to say one was hotter, which one is it? Hotter or notter? I'd say street smarts or book smarts.
I guess I'd say street smarts hotter. That's definitely what I've started with. But then I also find myself working backwards and working very hard to get the business smarts and to educate myself more formally.
What would you say is when because we hear most people talk about street smarts, what's that one piece of street smart that really helps anybody to become successful in business?
To me, it's really just the drive and the willingness to learn and figure out anything, not being afraid to look at something and say, I have no idea how to do that, but being willing to look at it and say, I don't know, but I can figure it out.
All right, I've got a question. So we've all been through the pandemic. I know you've got a family, you've got a growing family. Hot or not, working from home?
Oh, I will say not, and then I'll add a caveat.
Okay.
So particularly with working from home with a growing family, I have a 2-year-old now, and we live in an old 1940s house, and there is no insulation in the walls, and it is very difficult to stay focused, as well as to do things like this, hopping on a call, whether for Zoom meeting or a podcast or what have you. So I actually moved out of my house into a commercial office space the beginning of this year. And now I have just moved back into my house, but removed. I've been remodeling an old broken down shed in the backyard. So that's what I am currently coming to you from, is a shed that is mid remodel, but working. So what I've found in very short experience now is working from home in the backyard is fantastic. Working from home in the basement, not so much.
All right. So you want like a 900-foot commute as opposed to a 0 commute or a 1 mile commute.
That's right.
Cool.
So it's funny you say that, Rob, because I'm coming to you live from my basement, although it isn't a 1940s home and it's finished and all of that. But I am downstairs in the basement, but there's probably different scopes and spectrums of basements, but I get where you're coming from. Hey, listen, I'm really interested in something you and I were talking about briefly before we got started. And I want to bring up, because I was perusing it on your website, you're advancing beyond just musicians. You're talking to podcasters now. You're putting together some equipment, and this is somewhat new and growing. Talk to everybody about what you're doing to help podcasters out. I guess we're all in the audio game, right?
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for asking. So when 2020 hit, our flagship products were all for performing musicians. And when the pandemic hit, there weren't a lot of performances going on. So our sales just tanked, and I had to figure out what to do. Fortunately, I had a background in audio production, and over the past handful of years running Coda, had developed some really great manufacturing relationships. So I went to one of our manufacturers and said, hey, I have this idea. Can we roll it out super fast? And so the product that we ended up launching in less than 6 months was a microphone preamp booster. And so what that means is your typical dynamic microphone, like what I'm using, what Craig is using, is really great for podcasts because it gets really, I want to use non-technical terms. It sounds really great in a very directional environment, and it won't pick up stuff from the side. There's other types of microphones that'll pick up things from the side. The problem is these directional mics need a lot of juice, a lot of power. And the audio interfaces, what you plug that microphone into, most of the home audio interfaces just don't have that power that those microphones need. I liken it to putting regular unleaded gas into a race car. It might work, but it's not going to work the way that it was designed to. And if you give it the right type of gas, the right type of power, it will sound fantastic. So that's what our microphone preamps do, is they boost your microphone without increasing the gain, without increasing the noise and the feedback that can often happen. So now we're rolling out a whole series. We've rolled out 3 different microphone boosters, and we are working on building out an entire catalog for podcasters and content creators.
Well, make sure you put me on your list for the newsletter, because I'm interested.
We got you.
I'll just give a little testimonial. So I think the preamp you're talking about is the Stealth. Rob said, I've got one of those and I love it. It replaced this big ugly brick that was on my table doing the same job. So not only is it doing the work, but it's also a lot more attractive for a podcaster.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
So Craig, I think you're
I
up
guess
next. We were going back and forth, and I brought up podcasting, so I think we got lost in there somewhere. but-
absolutely. So I'm going to jump back to hot or not. It's somewhat a little bit related to e-commerce, not somewhat related. It's definitely e-commerce. So which is hotter in your opinion, Shopify or Amazon?
Oh, Shopify.
Oh, okay. Why?
To me, it's because you can have that personal one-on-one relationship with your customer that does not exist in Amazon. Additionally, the level of support that you're able to provide to a customer is it's pretty much non-existent on the Amazon side, and it's as much as you put into it on the Shopify side.
So sticking on the e-commerce side of it, I learned a lot when Craig was originally just a guest on our show. Now he's a host, but I really learned a lot from his show on e-commerce, and it's really just about marketing. But e-commerce has it's really a specialized type of marketing that, especially for somebody who's in the business like you, needs to really be honed in on. For those people listening who might need e-commerce, what are some tips, some techniques, some strategies that have worked well for you that you might be able to share with them?
Oh man, that's a broad question. Let me think. I would say for first off, if you are looking to get into e-commerce and you're coming from more of a retail platform, I would say, bouncing right back to Craig's question about Shopify versus Amazon.
Okay.
Shopify for building a e-commerce website is going to be better than anything else out there. WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, those can all build beautiful websites, but they are website first and e-commerce 9th or 10th, whereas Shopify is really e-commerce first and website second, but it's a great website. That said, I'll also plug for Amazon and say that there are so many benefits to selling through Amazon if you use their Fulfilled by Amazon program. So when I first started, there's no way that I could have run my business remotely without Amazon, because how it works is I actually rarely touch the products other than samples and content creation, making videos, that sort of thing. All of my products are now stored at a partner fulfillment center that I work with and at Amazon's fulfillment center. And if you are looking to get up and running with e-commerce and not be shipping packages out of your garage every day, having that relationship with Amazon and having them ship the packages for you every day, not only takes a huge load off you, but it's actually incredibly cost effective.
That's really great. And then you do all your manufacturing overseas, I guess you didn't say overseas. Where do you have your things manufactured, and how do you build those type of relationships? It seems like a very technical thing that's being built.
Sure. So actually our flagship product, Stomp Bluetooth foot controller, that's made here in the US. Mm-hmm. And then our microphone preamps are currently all made in China. Although we're exploring lots of different avenues there as well. And as we release more products, it's less about it's the question that we start with more is where is going to be able to do the best job at a price point that is going to work for our customers. And fortunately for our Bluetooth controller, it's worked to do it in the US. With the microphone preamps, we've done that in China, and those relationships come through honestly a variety of things. It's everything from cold outreach to networking like this, where I might talk to you and find out that you actually know somebody that specializes in PCB manufacturing, and I need that for a new product that we're working on.
Well, I can't believe how quickly this show is going. It always goes by fast. We are going to take our second and final short break to hear from our corporate sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Rob Hampton, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, I'm going to ask Rob a little bit about an epic fail. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. I think we're walking away.
Plead the Fifth.
Oh, there she is.
Brought to
Okay.
you by your corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, the Kitsap Sun newspaper, BC Fitness Studio, and the Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com shopify.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
All right. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we are interviewing the best and brightest of the greater Puget Sound area. I am co-host Craig Swanson, and our guest today is Rob Hampton. For our next segment, we are in Plead the Fifth.
And Barb, sorry about that. You know the old radio thing about dead air. I didn't know. So sorry about that. Hey, Rob, we're going to talk to you about maybe being a little more vulnerable here. We're going to make you answer some tougher questions, perhaps. Maybe you won't think they're tough. You get to plead the fifth once, but only once. And after you do, then the gloves really come off. You mentioned your days garage banding, so to speak, singing in garages, singing in churches, singing in terrible venues and all of that. You've probably played and performed in a whole spectrum of places. What is the biggest epic fail that you've ever had on stage? Can you share with us the most embarrassing, the biggest epic fail?
Yeah, absolutely. I instantly have one that comes to mind. When I was I think I was 16, I was playing in like a punk rock band. So very high energy. We're all running around the stage. That's just what we do. And me and the other guitarist had kind of choreographed, at least as much as choreographing would happen with a punk band, what we were going to do. And one of the things we had been practicing was what's called guitar spins, where you actually like loop your guitar around you and it comes back around. So you kind of have a big dramatic pause and stop in the music, spin it and catch your guitar. Well, we go and we're at this relatively big festival show for us at the time. And we get to that part to spin our guitars. I launch mine and it just launches. The strap breaks off and the guitar just flies like an arrow, like 20 feet. Fortunately, the rest of the band kept playing and I had a backup guitar behind me. So within a matter of seconds, I was plugged in and play it again. But it was definitely an epic fail. And that guitar was pretty trashed.
Your heart had to kind of like skip a little beat there as it was in midair, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
When you're young, a guitar can represent an awful lot of your value in the world at that point.
Yes, sir.
I loved hearing you talk about your dad. So I actually had two questions that are related. Like, what did you learn from your dad? What did you learn about being an entrepreneur from your dad? And what do you hope your kids pick up from you as having a dad as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I love that question. So I would say the biggest thing I've picked up from my dad is really work ethic and just knowing and being willing to work hard. Whether it's a easy job, like whether it's, easy in a sense of like, I'm just sitting at a computer most of the day, to digging ditches. And I've done that too, to everything in between. I think just learn from him work ethic. And in the entrepreneurial sense of that, I think I really also learned that you just really have to work for what you get, and to succeed in your career, to succeed in your business, it takes hard work and it takes being willing to push through even when it's not looking good and not feeling good.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to bring you back to the band, Rob. I'm going to bring you back and I'm going to let you create a brand new one. A lot of times we'll ask people, who would you invite to dinner? No. I'm going to have you in a band. You get 3 musicians, dead or alive, that you can form your 4-person band. You're one. Who are the other 3?
Wow. I've never thought of that one. Let's see. I guess I gotta say, you're gonna have Dustin Kensrew on vocals,
Okay.
which will put me on guitar, and then and I got to think of the names of drummers and bassists. Nobody pays attention to them, so you don't know their names.
You can even say who they drummed or bassed for.
Yeah.
How about that?
Oh man, there's a band called Tool, if you've ever heard of them. That I believe their drummer also is the drummer for Perfect Circle. and I think he's one of the best drummers of all time. So I'm blanking on his name, but the drummer from Tool for sure. And then let's see, who's just an amazing bass player. What was the guy from Rush's name? Terrible.
Oh,
names.
well, it was not Geddy Lee was the front man. It was oh my gosh. I just lost it. But Geddy Lee was the front man. So you always remember the front man.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Who knows the bassist and the drummer?
It's going to come to me. Hold on a second. Neil Peart. Neil Peart. There you go. All right. I'll let you get in because I at least I got my rush fix into there. I put my front man lead into Steve Perry from Journey. Again, I'm dating myself, but I'll go there.
I kind of like this. I'm picturing a T-shirt with like the 4 classic first names. We got Dustin, Rob. We don't know Dustin, Rob, Neil, and someone else. You know, we gotta like you tell our respective backgrounds by where we go with our questions. I want to ask you. You've got so many opportunities that are being experienced in your life. How do you deal with shiny object syndrome? How do you stay focused?
Well, I would say I don't stay focused. And how I deal with shiny object syndrome is I tend to chase the shiny objects. I think that's one thing that I've learned about myself in the past 3 or 4 years that has been really good to figure out is that I am really great at starting things. Whereas a lot of people, it's harder to start, but once something's running, they love it. I'm the exact opposite. So I love to start new things. I love new ventures. Like when even little things like building this office in my backyard, I had the idea and then the next week I was doing it. It's quick. And so that is a great strength, I think, in business because I don't sit around waiting for things to happen. I go and do them, but I definitely have so many different ideas that I have to kind of rein myself in. And that can come both from my team helping to rein me in, as well as my wife has become a great bit of accountability there. As well as I think now having a family has also made me realize, okay, maybe years ago I could have just gone off and chased the next thing, but it would be okay to fail easier in that time period. Whereas now I need to make sure that I continue to put food on the table. So that's kept me a little more focused, but I'm still pretty shiny object syndrome for sure.
Okay. I've got to follow because it sounds like you really love the starting of things. But I also think I picked up from your bio that you flipped at least one e-commerce site. So you've actually had the experience of selling e-commerce platforms as well. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. I think that's interesting that you love starting things, but you also have had some hands-on experience selling, which I'm really fascinated by.
Yeah. So I sold my first outdoor sporting goods reselling company to get the capital that I needed to start Coda. And kind of combine that with the Kickstarter sales. And then I actually ended up buying another guitar pedal company beginning of 2020. So I've both sold and bought businesses. And I had a service-based business doing graphic design for a little while as well. I sold that business. So yeah, I've done both sides. I think what I've figured out now is I really like getting it to a certain size. I really like starting something, getting it to a size, and then working on something new. And so yeah, I could definitely see selling again in the future. I could also see surrounding myself with the right person to continue to grow something that I've started, and then go off and look for new opportunities as well.
It sounds a little bit like you're somewhat of a serial entrepreneur, Rob. That
indeed,
you've got some other startups in your future. You know, one of the things that the pandemic certainly did is it magnified those areas where we all had to be in front of somebody else, because as you said, with shows, you know, musicians, all of a sudden they're not there. What I think a lot of entrepreneurs, including you, have figured out is ways to continue business by using technology, no matter what. Music's going to be around forever. It's just how you're digesting it, how you're getting it. If you were to look into your crystal ball, what do you what do you see in the future of just business in general, and how especially small entrepreneurs and small businesses are able to utilize technology to make sure that regardless of what happens, they're going to be able to continue?
Yeah, well, I can speak certainly from the vantage point of e-commerce and say that it has never been easier to start a e-commerce store. What would have taken months, if not years, just 10 years ago, I could now start a website with a good storefront with inside a couple of hours. So I think people are going to continue to find ways to reach their audience through technology. And one of the first hurdles that is so much more easily gotten over now is just great websites and access to now the whole world, not only just selling in your neighborhood and then your state and then your country, but even internationally as well. And I think that is going to continue to expand, and more people will even be selling internationally.
All right, that's great. Well, Rob, thank you for so much for being a guest on the Shrimp Tank. For our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about your company, where should they go?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Rob Hampton. I'm not really on social media outside of that, but then also on our website, codamusictech.com. Coda is spelled C-O-D-A. If you need anything, please reach out. We'd be happy to help you.
All right, fantastic. And for those of you watching, make sure you check out all the replays at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And whenever you get your podcast app of choice, Apple, Google, Shopify, Stitcher, I use Overcast. Please follow us and follow our show's social media page at YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Rob, first of all, thanks for joining us. Maybe we'll have you on again whenever you start something new again, we'll have you on, or just to give us an update of what's going on with Coda Music Technologies. Thanks again, Craig. As always, it was a pleasure. Everybody, you should do exactly what Craig says. Go to Facebook, like our page, and then join us for the live stream every Wednesday at noon Pacific time. Our next show will be Wednesday, July 13th. Our guest will be Julie Fry. Julie's really interesting. I was introduced to her because she helps book small business owners for podcasts, and it came out of COVID. So I said, you need to come on our show, and she is going to do just that. My co-host for that show will be Linda Popke. In the meantime, please, everyone, be safe, be well, be prosperous, enjoy the sunshine if you've got it, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp